Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Page Chewing Comics and Manga. This is, of course, Weekly Polls, where we talk about our pick of the week, episode number 41. Oh, to be 41 again. This is a podcast where we talk about mostly new, hot off the press comics. I'm Mike, and I'm back here with Steve, who's asked me to keep doing the intro. If you're joining us for the first time, we had a long hiatus where we weren't really looking at comics. For me, it was probably over 20 years, maybe more. And as of this last year or so, we've been kind of really hitting the comics, going into the comic store, comic shop, hardcore, in my case, every week. So if I don't know, Steve, if I got that right, but I do want to know if... How was your week? How have you been? What you been up to?
It's been busy, but pretty solid reading week. I don't think I disliked anything. I think most of it was pretty good. So yeah, not too bad. Not too bad of a week.
That's great. Yeah,
a couple of minor disappointments, but I'm sure we'll get into it. A couple of minors, but not bad. So I guess I'll kick it off. My first book this week was Gunslinger Spawn 31. It's my first time reading Gunslinger Spawn. I'm trying to get back into Spawn after the events of 350, and I was a little lost. It's my first introduction to this character. I didn't know that there was another character that was Spawn. There was a lot of them, and I love the artwork, but I just wasn't quite following what was going on, and that's what is... I know I'm sure someone out there has been keeping up with Spawn and wondering why I don't know what's going on, but there's just so many books, and getting back into it now, it's hard to keep up with all the different events and things that happen. So yeah, it was okay. The book was fine. I just don't really know what's happening. So I love the art, but I do wonder, how many Spawns do we need? Is it a character that we need to have so many books? Part of me wondered too that when Image was launched, I'm old enough to remember when the Image books were launched, and just falling in love with all these different characters and all these really different books. And I think part of it was that they were tired of what DC and Marvel were doing, all the different events and all the different tie-ins and all the different books. I think it's kind of ironic that we're back to the same thing that they were doing with all these different tie-ins and all these different offshoots and all these different titles. So I thought it was a little funny. I get why it's happening, but I thought it was interesting, but it was okay. It's fine.
Do you think you'll be continuing with Gunslinger?
Yeah, I guess. It's going to be more of I'll see it on the shelf and think, I'll just kind of decide on the fly. I'm not set one way or another, so I'm kind of flip-flopping back and forth. There are just so many great books that it's hard to give up a slot to a series that I really enjoy, or a new book that has all that potential. And the number ones. So it's tough.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. For my the first book I'm going to be talking about, there's somewhat of a theme here in that. There is a new multiverse or universe possibly coming through the Conan world. And this was so I have to say, first of all, this is Free Comic Book Day. And the title is, I paid nothing for this one. And this is called Conan Battle of the Blackstone by Titan Comics. And I think it's the exact same people that did the Savage Heart of Conan. Probably getting the name
Savage Sword.
Savage Sword of Conan, which I know is actually quite an old. This is a series that's been around for quite some time. It was. I paid nothing for it, but it hasn't. It started off with a very interesting kind of modern day tale, I think, and that they call a prelude. And I was pretty taken aback, but I'll get to that in a second. And so it's really kind of a classic Conan tale, really only a few pages. of a story here, just to kind of get you interested if you maybe had been not interested. And, what the hell, it's Free Comic Book Day. But the basic story is that Conan finds he battles a primitive. I mean, some of the stories here, you could tell this is from so many years ago. From, I think it was the 1930s, and they're trying to make it modern, but he's battling these quote unquote primitive people, which I just kind of wonder about. And he steals like a stone necklace that has a particular sigil on it, like an icon. So long story short, that ties in with many other storylines in the Robert E. Howard universe, some of which they cut to several different, scenes from, for example, Solomon Kane. I've never read any of the Solomon Kane stuff, but that's Robert E. Howard. I think there's been a series on that character, and but they're calling it the Howard verse. So it's kind of like it's interesting. I can't really say, it's Free Comic Book Day, but it's another one of those things that we are seeing over and over again. So it actually made me less interested to keep going with the Savage Sword series that I was reading. But whatever. It's, like I said, it's kind of a tie-in with a bunch of different kind of potential storylines. And so I think some people like that, but that's not really, I think you and I are not huge fans of that necessarily. Mm-hmm. But that to me was a similar theme with the Spawn, universe. Anyway. Yeah.
Yes. Trying to modernize certain characters just doesn't work. I know it's a way to market and to make them relatable, but I think part of what, especially at someone like Conan, he's like this really, I don't want to say simple, but he's not the type of character you can really modernize. It's more of a fantasy character. It's like bringing a character from Lord of the Rings into modern day. It just doesn't feel right.
Yeah. I think the one that I read over a month ago, they had a strong female character with him. So it was, to me, she was a big, she had a lot of, I was going to say screen time, but there was a lot of time or content dedicated to that character at least. But yeah, I'm struggling with it a little bit, but I just wanted to wet my toe and kind of, try to understand a little bit that world, but I'm not sure if I'm going to continue or not.
Yeah, I keep hearing that some of the Conan titles are really good,
mm-hmm.
but I just haven't dipped in. Remember when I was a kid, I had the really big issues, a really big black and white, white, and I have them somewhere in the garage somewhere. But I remember really liking. They seemed kind of one-offs and just Conan tales, and I think that's the appeal of someone like Conan is you can jump in and out. For people like us, you can just jump in and out. It's Conan. So when you start to put him in a universe and the Howard verse or whatever, I don't know, it just loses its charm in some ways. I think when you try to add a universe around everyone and make it kind of follow that trend of multiverses and universes, and just make good stories.
Yeah.
Just write good stories and make give us a good Conan story.
I think a lot of it has to do with marketing. It's like, if you like this, you'll like this kind of thing. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I mean, it's in some ways I get it, but it's still kind of, yeah. But, so the next one is, for me, was Kneel Before Zod. I think you read this one too.
Yes, I did.
Zod, so he turns out he's not quite done yet. And we get a flashback to his childhood that tied into Superman's family. And I thought it was kind of neat to tie in Superman's family into it and kind of give a flashback from his childhood. And it gives a little bit more context on who Zod is and why he is the way he is. I thought it was a nice touch. The artwork, I don't know why it didn't occur to me before, but it looking at it now, it does remind me kind of, I don't know, silver or golden age artwork. It has really bold lines and really strong colors. I love like a traditional type of art style, but I really enjoy the art. I think it's great. Really great use of color throughout the series. And Zod starts to rebuild his army in a way that I did not expect with the group that I didn't see coming. But I kind of like where it's going. I think it's going to be interesting. I think Zod, they're staying true to who Zod is. They're not trying to make him likable necessarily. I think he has flashes of doing honorable things, or at least on his, like, by his code of what he thinks is right or wrong. But I think he has a code, but he's also kind of a scumbag too. But I like that. Like, they're not trying to make him a hero. He's a scumbag.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's motivated by conquest, and I think from issue 4, vengeance and that sort of thing. I have to admit, I missed out on. I read issue 5, and I was like, boy, I don't understand what's going on. So today, when I went to the comic store, I picked up issue 4, and so I understand. So my initial kind of notes about Zod number 5 was like, what's going on? But I will just add, what I really liked was the introduction of all kind of this new, like, all these different alien races and diversity of weird looking creatures. And he comes across these kind of green cyclopean, very strange looking characters. I just love the imagination. In some ways, the artwork is not working for me as well. And I thought, like, I was kind of comparing it to, say, Geiger, which I'm going to discuss in a moment. And I think I think I go for the detail more. Like, I like to be able to look in the background and think about what I'm seeing. And there's some cases where there wasn't a lot, but I really did appreciate the diversity of kind of different weird creatures. Anyway, but it's okay. Yeah, I'm sticking with. I'm also. I guess we're in it for the long haul here. So it's. I'm enjoying the series, though. I think it's good. It's a good story. Okay, so I guess I'm up next. This is once again a free comic book day. Is it the World or Worlds of James Tynion from Boom? And basically what we get here is like 3. So if you haven't been reading James Tynion, I'm actually going to cover him in a moment here. It's basically like 3 sneak peeks of 3 different series. One is Something is Killing the Children. Another is called Memetic. And the third one, which may be new, may not have been released yet, which is called The Woods. And you're just getting little snippets here, and I kind of like that. It's like these are. I didn't mind it. I actually own Something is Killing the Children Volume 1, and I really liked what I was reading. The setup, the great setup into that. The world of kind of teenagers kind of goofing around or whatever, wanting to find haunted houses, or trying to remember again, but it's something along those lines. And then the other 2, I really love the artwork for Memetic and The Woods, but especially Memetic. The level of detail I was just so impressed with. And if I understand, Memetic relates to the study of memes, or memetics is the study of memes. And I'm not so sure if I'm bought in yet, but it's about a meme that has these like impacts on people's minds. I won't go into, all of the 3 stories so much, but I would, one thing I will say, because I'm going to mention the Deviant later, is these are much more theme oriented as opposed to the Deviant, which is clearly for mature audiences. That was one of the takeaways I had. I think these are, especially Something is Killing the Children, has received rave reviews. I hope we can maybe cover it at some point on the podcast.
Yeah, I love that. We'll be talking about another James Tynion book later.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, a couple more. So the next one is the Little Black Book, number 3 of 4. This is a series that I really like. I think issue 2 was my pick of the week last week or a couple weeks ago. Either way, it's coming out pretty quick. We only a couple weeks apart, and it's my least favorite book of the series, and it makes me wonder how they're going to wrap all this up in 4 issues. Because the first 2, I think one of the things we talked about was it's taking its time and it's setting everything up, and it's really kind of letting the characters develop. And I think they did a really great job with issues 1 and 2. Issue 3 felt like it was rushed, like not rushed like in quality, but the story felt very compacted. It felt very like it kind of just like vomit everywhere. Just the story just didn't flow as well. I think the art is still great. I think everything else, but the story, the revelation in issue 2, the explanation for it was pretty weak. I thought, why his father would fake his death. I thought that whole thing was really just didn't make sense. Just didn't. There wasn't enough of setup of development to make that kind of makes sense or have like a payoff. But I'm really concerned because after the first 2, you thought this might be like an 8 issue, could be like an 8 or 10 issue series, and now we have one more issue to go, and I'm really worried about it. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think we're pretty much in alignment on this one. I felt like it took a turn, for the worse here. I actually felt like the artwork quality went down a bit. I meant to look it up, but I thought they might have had a new artist, but I'm not sure. I just felt like the characters seemed a lot more kind of flat, and whereas I think what we liked earlier, I felt like we really were understanding, some of the characters as being kind of more multifaceted. I mean, this character of the father, he's kind of he's really a jerk. And I'm just kind of like, what? Yeah, why is he back? Why is he back? But I will say it did end on a kind of tension building cliffhanger. So I think they knew where they wanted to go, but I'm not sure how they're going to wrap this up in the fourth and final issue.
Yeah, the first and second issue I thought were really great, and it was really developing into something, but I don't know. I'm worried about it.
Like if you look at I just look at the faces of, I forgot the main character's name, unfortunately, forgot to write it down, but he just looks different to me. He just looks very different to me. And then the father looks young. He looks to be almost the exact same age. So, I mean, there's just some things that pulled me out of it for me. I don't know. But I will also mention that I bought 2 of these because of the variant covers.
Oh, really? They got
me. And I wonder, I'm sure I'm not the first person to do that. So I ended up with 2, and I felt I was too embarrassed to be like, or I felt bad to be like, to return it, but I still might do it.
Yeah, that's funny. But the variant covers, they've gotten me a few times. A book that I had no interest in reading, zero interest in. I was like, I'll just buy it for the cover because it was a Joker book that I remember buying that no interest in reading, but the cover was so beautiful that I just had to. So they get us all sometimes.
Definitely. So the next one that I'm gonna cover here is Geiger number 2. And the big question for me was, can this live up to my unexpected pick of the week from a month ago or so? And I have to say, I'm still happy with the series. The world building is quite good. I'm pleased with it. It's they're taking some time in this issue. Jeff Johns, the writer, is taking time to let us kind of get to know what it's like to survive in a post like World War III world in what they're calling the wastelands. So it's like, hunting for animals and making sure they're not too filled with radiation so they can eat them. Anyway, things like that. I really appreciated. There's some Wild West elements as well in this issue. Of course, much more modernized. There's a storyline of how Geiger is kind of blackmailed to stop some vigilante that's threatening a town. Yeah, I'm very happy. This could have easily been another pick of the week.
Wow.
Yeah, the artwork is very stylish, and I just love the way they're it's Gary Frank is just is showing us this weird landscape. I was not expecting to continue to like this series.
So I have the first volume of Geiger on the shelf behind me that no one listening can see. Do you think it's required reading to read the first volume before this series, or can you jump into this series?
Okay, so there was that volume, and then there was like prequels, and then two prequel issues as well. And I think it really does help to know, because where he's coming from, what motivates him. I think you could get away without doing it, without reading it, but it just adds its strength. It adds to the flavor, So it's hard for me to say yes or no. But the first volume, I just didn't expect it to continue, to be good for some reason. I think that's because they had these kind of intermediate, back issues. And again, this is another one of these shared universe things. But yeah, I would say if you can, and you can read it in an afternoon.
Yeah. I'm a completionist, so of course I'd start at the beginning because my OCD will go nuts. But just curious for anyone listening who might be wondering that. Yeah, I'll start. I already own it, so we're one of them. So the next one was one I took a chance on. It's called Mugshots #1 by Mad Cave. It's done in black and white, but there's color. The color is filled in with a single color. So there's blues and there's oranges that is used to shade and to kind of give a feel. So it's mostly black and white, except for those really distinct colors for certain characters. So in a nutshell, the story starts with a young woman being kidnapped. Her parents enlist her brother, the mother's brother, who has ties to criminal activities. Let's say we don't know everything about him yet, but he is tied into that world. He's brought back to his hometown to help figure out who kidnapped the young woman and why, and if he is or not related, or not related, if he's involved in it somehow, whether people are trying to get back at him, or if he's somehow unknowingly involved, that someone's trying to get at him to kidnap his niece. So he comes back to help, and it felt a little bit uneven to me. It didn't really flow. It was a long issue. I think it was 70 pages, 60 something, 70 pages. And it was fine. I think it was all right. I'll keep reading it. It was a big first issue. There's some potential here. It didn't blow me away. It did, like I said, it did feel uneven a little bit, but the color, I usually don't go for that type of art style, but it worked for me here. And the cliffhanger after issue 1 was okay, but it wasn't what I would expect a first issue to end on. So far, it's okay. It was good. It was fine, but not blown away. So I'll pick up issue 2 and kind of go from there. But yeah, a good start.
So I did a quick peek of what the artwork looked like online, and it's very similar to the series I'm reading called Blue Book. I think it's called Blue Book 1947 or something like that, where it's black and white and then there's like blue or something or some other color. And I have to agree, I don't usually go for those. There's some of those that I see and I'm just like, the visual has to catch me, unless it's like some writer or series but anyway. Oh, so I think, did we both cover this next one, which is the Sacrificers? Yeah. Okay, I can start us off.
What'd you think of it?
If you want.
Yeah. Sure.
So this is a series we've been enjoying, and I noticed in the comic shop today that the trade paperback was on the shelf. So I think cool. I think we both would recommend to people to pick that up, because there's something special, I think, about this series. And this one, so we're zooming in on our favorite character of the Pigeon. I don't think he has any other name. We learned that actually here, that he was never given a name because he was always meant to be sacrificed in this, this crazy world. I'm gonna start us off with a quote here. We only get one family, and if that well is poisoned or not, we return to drink to see if we're still loved. I think I paraphrased that a little bit, but that just gives you a hint at the writing here. There's some really good writing, coupled with the excellent artwork of Max Fiumara, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. But this is a focus on Pigeon, and he's trying to get back home. We, as I mentioned earlier, we learned that he was always meant to be killed, to be sacrificed. And so he's dealing with a lot of emotion. So this character is very complex. I was a little bit disappointed in the ending. Maybe, well, I'm not sure what to think. I'm very curious what you think, Steve, but just a quick comment again on the artwork. I loved, or I should just say I was very struck by an image where he's back home and he finds a kind of tattered teddy bear, from one of his siblings that he loved and cared for. But very curious what you thought, because neither of us picked this one for the pick of the week.
It was really close. It was really close. I love this book. This feels like a turning point for the series, and a turning point for Pigeon, because that seeing where the character started and seeing what the character went through, what Pigeon's gone through, and seeing him now, it's been a journey. And I think this issue made me reflect on what Pigeon's gone through, the journey that they've taken in from that point to now, and how much they've endured and suffered. And it was a powerful book, just returning home and trying to find his way back home, and then finding what he found. The artwork, I love the muted tones, the browns and the grays, but when you contrast Pigeon and his blue feathers, it's the contrast between the two. It's almost like he stands out. Pigeon stands out in every scene. Pigeon is in the forefront because of his vivid blue feathers. The writing, this whole book is just dripping with tragedy, and I love it. The end of the book, I think I know where it's going to go, and I'm on board for. I think the turn. I think Pigeon has a turn in this one. You see something snap. And I think Pigeon is going to become what he was originally fighting against.
Okay. Yeah, and I will say it's not too. I don't know if we want to give too much away necessarily, but you and I know what we're talking about. It wasn't too much of a stretch to see what he's turned into at the end here, because he's had moments, and his upbringing was awful, right? Like I was really feeling for him in this one, just to imagine, and then, everything is destroyed as well. He goes back. This world is in really bad shape. So yeah, I think I'm also falling for the tragic elements here too. But I think maybe there's some hope. We'll see. Who knows? Maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a whole lot of hope. I don't know but I love that. That's the kind of stuff I love. Like I said, this issue made me reflect on the first 7 issues, and I think if we went back and really dissected that first trade, that's in trade paperback now, I think we could spend a lot of time dissecting it. There's a lot that happened, a lot of things that go on, and I think this is a book that could be revisited and really kind of broken down with all the different themes and characters and story that took place. And it's brilliant. It's so good.
I just want to say one last gushing thing is that I don't have have trouble remembering what happened. I don't know why that is, but even though from month to month, there's a pretty big gap, so I feel like I have a pretty vivid idea in my head of what the story has been. I don't know what. I think it has something to do with the artwork, though.
Yeah, I can see that. Especially you mentioned earlier that the art has to capture your attention. I think the art is gorgeous. Just it's in the colors and the layouts and the panels and the scenes it's so good. It's so good. And people are probably wondering, why isn't this your pick of the week if it's so damn good? But we'll get to that. Okay, so the next one, I think it's hard to transition from a book like that, but it's World Tree number 9. Another series I started at the beginning. So this one I'm torn on. I'm not quite sure about this one. I think the premise of the Undernet is an interesting premise, interesting setup. I think there's a few groups of characters, and there's groups of characters and storylines that I've checked out of. I just don't care. The characters I don't like, it's not pulling me in. It's not interesting to me. It just seems like people bickering at each other, really pretend. It's like a group of your pretentious friends that you're like work colleagues that you have to spend time with, and your skin crawls when you're around them. I just don't like. I'm not into it. And there's one group of characters that I do enjoy, but it's like a third of the book, a quarter of the book. So this one I'm really on the fence with. I'll probably keep going because it's James Tynion, but yeah, I'm not crazy about it. I hope things. And another thing is this issue felt very meandering. It felt very kind of it's not really moving. And when you have a book that's revolving around such a big idea, and you're introducing all these different mysteries and this big issue, this big thing that they're working on, that they're trying to stop, you have to have more momentum. I was surprised with how kind of slow this one was. It seemed very like the momentum just stopped for me. So we'll see.
It's really fascinating because I've not been reading that series, and that's James Tynion, and then I've been reading The Deviant, which is James Tynion, and that's my pick of the week. He's very busy. He's a very busy man right now. So this is, The Deviant number 5. So I've had a few moments with this series where I wasn't so sure if I liked it or not. But this one is 90% flashback to the main character, Michael's adolescence. And we learn a lot about him and what motivates him. And there is some very striking things that he does from when he was a very young person. And so you really start to question this character. And I have to say, that's good. That got me. I didn't expect to go there. I guess I didn't know what I thought, but I whenever a series, pulls one over me, if you will, or pulls the rug out from under me, I'm impressed. So the artwork is fine. It's got a kind of a retro style but it can be very emotive. And I have to say, I think the artist is named Hickson. They portrayed awkward adolescence extremely well here. Because, one of the things about the character Michael is that he's gay. So we see a moment with him when he was young, and he has some issues, but we learn a lot more about where he started to get fascinated with the whole serial killer stuff. And I won't go further, but overall, I'm very happy with this one. This surprised me, so that's why, it's the pick of the week for me.
No, now I'm bummed out that I skipped out on that series after the second or third issue.
Yeah, well, maybe you can pick up the trade paperback or get it from the library, because it's one of those things where I'm like, I just wasn't sure where it was going, and then now it pays off to hang around. And that's what we're doing. We're not getting the trades. We're getting these little issues. So we get 30 some odd pages a week here, but sometimes you're really you're really impressed.
Well, damn. Now I have to read it. Did this one surprise you that it's your pick?
Yes. I keep thinking that, I'm not going to continue liking this series. I think the last one wasn't bad. I think at issue 3, I stopped. But for whatever reason, I picked it up again, because it was still lying there on the shelves. It might have been a slow week for me. And I thought, you know what, maybe I'll give it another try. So I'm because I was almost dropped it. I'm happy. Yeah.
Nice.
I think you've had a few of those yourself too over the last year or so.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's why I'm always hesitant to give up on something like World Tree. Like, I know if I give up on it, I'll hear later like how great it was, and I'll be like, damn it, I shouldn't have stopped. But they always seem to get you. So this week, my pick, I don't think anyone who listens would be surprised to hear, is Get Fury #1, of course, by Garth Ennis and Jason Burrows on art. This pair, I just can't. I don't know. I'm a sucker for that pair. I think they work together so well. This is by Marvel, the Max Comics line. If you haven't read Punisher Max, it is my favorite by far Punisher run, the Ennis run. And of course, the Fury Max is another great series. I'd kind of forgotten about it, and then reading this one reminded me of how great that series was. Just another great series. So Ennis, Burrows, Nick Fury, Frank Castle. How can I not make that my pick of the week? And as great as The Sacrificers was, I don't know, I'm just a sucker for it. It hits me in all the right places. So in this one, we start off in Vietnam. Nick Fury is captured. He's a hostage, and Frank Castle is brought in to kill Nick Fury before Nick Fury is tortured and potentially give up intel, because Nick Fury knows everything there is to know about all the operations. So he's brought in to eliminate Nick Fury because they don't see a way for him to be rescued. That's basically the book. It is brutal, violent, and brilliant. And I'm so happy that they're doing something, and they're taking on Nick Fury and Frank Castle again. So I know Punisher they've tried to kind of reinvent Punisher and make him modern, and I think they canceled that book already. So I don't think that book is still happening, but there's just something about that era of Punisher, him being in Vietnam and the events of Punisher Born, and it does touch on that too a little bit. It hints at that. So it seems like it's in the same world as what happened during Punisher Born and possibly Punisher Max. But it is, it's unforgiving. I was surprised how far they went with this one in the violence category.
Yeah, I am not a Punisher person, so it piqued my interest. I might have to go back. And I get the sense that Garth Ennis hasn't written for DC for quite a while. Or sorry, Marvel. Excuse me. I'm going to get in trouble here.
He wrote. What did he write recently? He wrote something.
But
it's been a little bit. He wrote another character.
He wrote Ribbon Queen, right? But I don't. It was
AWA,
okay.
I believe, and that was kind of that one. Second half was a disappointment for me. So he does some creator-owned stuff. He comes back to Marvel. I think he's a sucker for Punisher, just like I am, and Nick Fury. And he's written some just classic stories for them. So that is Punisher to me. The other Punishers don't exist. And this whole Nick Fury thing, the Nick Fury and Frank Castle Punisher is Garth Ennis, as far as I'm concerned. I know someone out there is like banging their fists against their phone or something, but I don't know. It's just so good.
Wow, that's a great way to end, and it's good when you're back in the saddle with a team that you really like, and I know that's been a theme for you on this podcast.
Yeah, no one does violence like Jason Burrows. No one does violence like Jason Burrows. He has a knack for it. So yeah, it's already shaping up to be another classic. I'm convinced. But yeah, it's really great stuff. It is. Yeah, I'm surprised they went as far as they did with this one. I'm glad they did. So yeah, it's a pretty good week. I think we had a couple that weren't, stinkers, but they weren't bad. They were just kind of a bummer. But there is a new feature for the podcast. If you go in the description, there's a link there for send fan mail, and you can click that and send us a comment and tell us how dumb we are and how our opinions suck, or give us recommendations of what to read, and just be nice. If you said something, be nice. So yeah, you can also, the better option is to join our forums. Come and say hi. We have a section for comics and for books and for movies and damn or anything else you can think of. Come and say hello to us. We friendly bunch, very small and tightly knit community. So come by and say hi, and DM us if you'd like to get in touch. So yeah, so until next week, we will talk to everyone very soon, and happy reading.
Bye-bye.